Welcome to the September 28th, 2021 Zoning Board of Appeals meeting of the town of Raymond. The Zoning Board of Appeals will come to order. The board does have a quorum. I'm now going to do a roll call. Patricia, I'll go ahead and start with you, please. Do we have you, Patricia? I'll do mine. David Murch.
Tom Hennessy.
Greg Dean.
And we'll have Patricia state her name once she's connected here. This is a public proceeding, and unless the board specifically votes to go into executive session, you have the right to hear everything that is being said and to look at all of the exhibits that are presented. Please notify the chair if you are unable to see or hear. The board works from a published agenda and will be considering tonight's items in the following order. Call to order. Approval of minutes from August 31st, 2021 meeting. New business, public hearing, applicant Bruce Hamilton for a setback reduction. Second public hearing, applicant Port Harbor Marine for a conditional use outside storage. Number 4, code enforcement communications, code enforcement officer communications, and then finally adjournment. In each instance, the burden is upon the applicant to demonstrate compliance with the provisions of the applicable ordinances or state law. After the board votes on the merits of each application, it will prepare a written notice of decision. Because the notice of decision may substantially affect any appeals rights, and also as a matter of courtesy, the board asks that those attending the meeting with regards to a specific application not leave until the board has completed its discussion. Generally speaking, appeals from adverse decisions must be filed with the Superior Court as otherwise provided by law within 45 days of this board's decision. Also, to be certain that you preserve your individual rights to file such an appeal, you must be certain that the board's record evidences your appearance this evening in opposition and the basis for your opposition. All persons speaking, including representatives of the applicant and members of the public, are asked to stand at the microphone, to sign the speaker sheet, state their name and address and affiliation with the application, either being for, opposed, or neutral. All persons speaking shall address all remarks or questions to the chairman. This meeting is not over until the board has formally adjourned. Any discussion not included on the meeting's agenda or accepted by the board is to be held until after adjournment or conducted outside the meeting room. Patricia, are you with us?
Yes.
Okay. I just need you to state your name for our roll call, please.
Patricia Beaton.
Thank you very much. So tonight's meeting is a remote meeting. Patricia is obviously one of our board members. She's not able to be with us tonight. Therefore, this meeting is opened up as a remote meeting. Therefore, we will also allow for public to interact with this meeting remotely. And when we do go through a vote, we'll have to do it as a roll call vote. Therefore, we can properly acknowledge everybody's vote. So, first up on our agenda was call to order. Second up, approval of minutes for the August 31st, 2021 meeting. I would entertain a motion for approval for those, unless somebody's got questions.
I'll offer up that they get approved as stated.
I have a second.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? So I have to do a roll call vote on this. Patricia, do you agree with the approval of the minutes for the 2021 August 31st, 2021 meeting? Yes. I agree. David Murch, Tom?
I agree.
Greg?
Agree.
Okay. That is passed. New business, public hearing, applicant Bruce Hamilton, location 20 Crockett Road, map lot 5226, zone LRR2, request for a setback reduction. There was a site walk that was held on this property on September 18th, Saturday, 2021 at 9 a.m. In attendance for the board were myself, David Murch, Tom Hennessy, as well as Greg Dean. Patricia was unable to attend. The applicant, Bruce Hamilton, was also in attendance. Is Bruce here tonight? Bruce, I'm going to ask if you could to step up to the microphone. Please make sure to sign in. In a minute, I'm going to ask you to give us an overview of what you're looking for in terms of this appeal. And then for the rest of you here that may be wanting to speak on this, we will then open up public comment. We'll look first for people who are in approval of this, then secondarily anybody who may be opposed, and then finally anybody who may be neutral to have a chance to speak on this. So, Bruce, if you could just give us an overview, please, of what you're asking for tonight with your appeal.
Sure. My name is Bruce Hamilton. My wife Kathy and I live at 20 Crockett Road. We moved there permanently in early July. We're looking for a setback reduction in order to put a storage shed on the property. This is now our permanent home as opposed to a vacation home, so we've got more stuff than we have room for currently in our garage, lawn equipment, gardening equipment for the most part. And if we follow the existing code ordinances, the shed is going to be either right next to our a screen porch that we have on the property, or like in the middle of our backyard. So there's currently an existing fence. We'd like to just put it on the end of the fence, if you will, have it continue kind of as a three-dimensional fence. But in the corner of the yard, we have talked to a lot of our neighbors. I've got notes from all of our abutting neighbors that you should have in your hands. That nobody has any objections, and I think that's about it, unless you have any questions, or is there something I left out?
Yeah, I know that I've got a few questions. I suspect perhaps my fellow board members may as well. One of the questions I have is to confirm from you, you're looking for a 7-foot setback, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Another question I had in regards to the shed itself, what purpose did you have for it again?
Storage,
Storage.
lawnmower, gardening equipment.
I know at the site walk you had mentioned potentially motorcycles and such.
Yes.
Okay.
No, apparently automobiles are often put in storage sheds, and no plans for that whatsoever.
Now, looking at the sketch that you've provided for us, it does appear that the shed could be placed in other locations on the property without requiring a setback. Would that be correct?
There is room there, but it's going to be pretty obtrusive to the building, our yard. We've got a screen porch that would pretty much block the breeze, and we're just trying to maintain as much yard and grass as we can.
Okay. That's all I had for the moment for questions. Do my fellow board members have any questions? Patricia, I'll look to you first. Do you have any questions?
I don't at this time.
Okay. Tom or Greg?
Nope, I have none. No questions.
Okay. So, Mr. Hamilton, right now, I'll go ahead and you can go ahead and have a seat. What I'm going to do now is open up public comment for this to see. But you are correct. We have received some letters that you've provided from your neighbors. We have one from Donnie Valachi.
Yes.
I apologize for that naming. Saying that they have no problems with the property. Another communication from a Drew Littman. indicating that they do not have any concerns. Another communication from Kathleen Askoff. Fully support, have no objections. And finally, another communication from James and Pamela Murphy, indicating that they have no issues with the shed. So that's what we have on here. Great.
I have a question. You
Sure.
mentioned signing in. How or where do I do that?
There was supposed to be a sheet there, but I got
Okay.
it.
So we will open up public comment for this. Is there anybody here tonight, either in the audience or remotely, that would like to speak in favor of this? No? Is there anyone here tonight that would like to speak in opposition to this appeal? And finally, is there anyone here who wants to speak from a neutral perspective on this appeal? No? Okay, seeing and hearing nothing in that regard, I'll go ahead and close public comment with regards to this application or this appeal. So, Alex, do you have anything you want to share with us in advance of us discussing this?
No, I think if you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. One of the things I did provide to you before the meeting, one of the things I looked at, running through all of the items that you guys will be going through here in a sec, one of them is the lot coverage. And so I did look at these numbers. They're approximate, obviously, based on assessing information. So that could be wrong. But that's really all I have to go off of, and then Google Earth imagery measurements. So from what I can tell, their proposed increase would be under the 15% required for that. But I'll let you guys go through the different requirements, and if you have questions along the way, I can definitely chime in.
Very good. Thank you. So we are looking at a zone LRR2 that would fall under our shoreland zoning provisions. Under that document, specifically section 16, subsection G for appeals. And then further, trying to get used to my list that Sandy created here. Section variance appeals, number 2. The zoning board actually should bump up to number 1. Powers and duties of the boards of appeal. The boards of appeals shall have the following powers: administrative appeals, variance appeals, and the authority to review decisions. 1B says to authorize variances upon appeal with the limitations set forth of in these ordinance provisions. So that would give us the authority to review this. Section F of this, the Board of Appeals may grant reductions from the minimum setback requirements set forth in 15A of these provisions according to all the following criteria. And there are 8 criteria that we'll need to go through, Mr. Hamilton, before we have to, as a board, go through these. And then once we've gone through these, had our discussion, then we'll be able to make a decision. Okay. So item number 1, setback reduction appeals are only available to reduce the minimum requirements for setbacks of structures from lot boundary lines. Setback reduction appeals shall not be used and are not available from boundaries of water as provided in these provisions. Based on the application, based on the site walk, I don't see that this is a request for a setback reduction from a body of water. So I believe that this item has been met. Patricia, would you agree with that?
Yes.
I agree.
Yep. Okay. So item number 1 would be considered complete. Number 2, setback reduction appeals may only be granted and are only available for lots with a residential dwelling as I think it's the sole principal structure. Again, based on site walk information that's been provided, I see that there is only a sole residential building on this property. So I believe that this item has been met. Patricia, your thoughts?
Agreed?
Tom?
Agreed?
Greg?
Yep.
Number 3, the Board of Appeals may grant a setback reduction appeal if the board finds that granting the setback reduction will not result in unreasonable interference with the privacy interests of abutting landowners. Again, based on the site walk, the information that's been provided, as well as letters from abutters, I don't see that privacy interests would be interfered with. Patricia, your thoughts on this?
Agreed?
Tom?
Agreed?
Greg?
Agreed.
Okay. Number 4, in granting a setback reduction, the Board of Appeals may attach reasonable conditions which it may deem necessary to serve the purposes of these provisions. We'll have to potentially come back to that. Number 5, a setback reduction appeal shall not be granted to enable construction or renovation that will create additional dwelling units. Again, based on the appeal itself, comment that was given tonight, I don't see that additional dwelling units are the purpose of this request, so I believe this has been met. Patricia, comments?
Agreed?
Tom?
Agreed?
Greg?
Agreed.
Number 6, a setback reduction appeal shall not be granted to enable construction or renovation that will result in more than one garage on the lot that is the subject of the appeal. I believe during the site walk there was a garage on property, correct? Do we remember?
Attached garage.
Attached garage.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Yep, attached garage.
Yeah, there is an attached garage. Yeah.
Okay. So I had asked our code enforcement officer for a definition of, a legal definition from the town's perspective of what a garage is. I got this from Sandy. It says, per David's request, the definition of a garage is in Article 12 of our Shorelands, page 110. That would be an accessory use or structure, a use or structure which is incidental and subordinate to the principal use or structure. Accessory uses, when aggregated, shall not subordinate the principal use of the lot. And we had a follow-up question. Can you also supply information to us all what constitutes a shed versus a garage? And per our code enforcement officer, there is no difference. Both are considered accessory residential structures as far as we're concerned for storage use. So I kind of hang on this one a little bit. I'm not convinced that we're not introducing a second garage here based on our definitions. And I would kind of like to get the board's own insight on that.
Why don't we defer to Patricia? She's been on the board long.
True.
So, question, you indicated that the existing garage is attached to the home, it's not a detached?
Correct.
That's correct, Patricia.
Okay. Okay. Then I would view it, I wouldn't view it myself as a second garage.
Is there, and this may be a question for Alex, but is there anything, I mean, given that it is attached, I mean, it seems it could be just part of the dwelling at that point. There's no real classification that makes it a garage other than we're perhaps calling it a garage or its current uses to store motor vehicles, or is there any guidance there?
The ordinance doesn't really differentiate between a garage and a shed. But building code does typically lists uses of a structure. And a garage is typically attached or detached, separated by a firewall, for example. And it's treated as a separate use. It's a storage use. So I guess two items, maybe food for thought, and you can kind of take it for what it is. The way that I think I would look at a garage versus a shed is a garage in most situations is for storage of a vehicle, a car, truck. You can put a lawnmower or other stuff, but you aren't typically storing cars in sheds, and that's not what we're usually finding. Maybe a way you guys can look at it is I believe the area around the shed is all grass, so there is no actual driveway access to the shed, so maybe that's one way to look at it. The other way you could look at it is, to separate shed versus garage is maybe a garage would be used for storing a vehicle registered for travel over the road versus a shed that might be used for storage of a lawnmower, which isn't registered for travel over the road. So I think there's things you guys can possibly use here when looking at that, but there is no real clear guidance in the ordinance, unfortunately.
During the site walk, I asked whether it was going to be a foundation for this shed, and Bruce said, no, it's just on blocks or whatever. So,
With a wood
sort of
floor.
makes it impossible to drive a large motor vehicle in, I would think. But
Yeah, that's another good point. Yeah, for sure.
Greg, anything to add?
Well, I kind of go back to, where is it here? Maybe reasonable conditions. This might be something we could solve with reasonable conditions to clarify the use going forward. It sort of seems to me that it's a shed. I know that maybe the accessory use or structure doesn't kind of differentiate between the two, but I don't get the sense that this is a garage in the canonical sense, and if we could handle it with a constraint or attach a constraint to it to guarantee to ensure that that's the use for it, that may be something we could consider.
Yeah, I would concur with Greg. Patricia, do you have anything further to add to it?
No, I think the conditional conditions would cover it.
Okay. So based on our conversation and the idea that we can add a condition to this, should we approve it, I am going to say that number 6, a setback reduction appeal shall not be granted to enable construction or renovation that will result in more than one garage on the lot that is the subject of the appeal. I'm going to say that that has been met based upon some conditions which you may add. So I'm going to say that this has been met. Patricia, how do you feel?
Agreed.
Tom?
agreed.
Greg?
Agreed.
Number 7, no setback reduction appeal may be granted that will result in impervious surface lot coverage of greater than 15%. And that's what Alex has helped us out with. And under the information that Alex has provided and with his calculations, he's estimating existing lot coverage percent at 11.32. The percentage after the increase of the shed would be at 12.21, so 12.21 would certainly be less than 15%. So Alex, thank you for providing this, saving us some time. So I'm going to say, based on the site walk and what we saw, the information that Alex has provided, that item number 7 has been satisfied. Patricia, thoughts?
Agreed.
Tom?
Agreed.
Greg?
Yeah, it seems like even with like reasonable tolerances, like it's not even close. So I agree.
Okay, good. Setback reduction appeals may only be granted to the minimum extent necessary to accomplish the purpose of the appeal. Setbacks may not be reduced by setback reduction appeal to less than the following absolute minimum setbacks: front yards 15 feet, side yards 10 feet, rear yard 15 feet. Setback reduction being requested here is for the rear yard. The request was for 7 feet, which is significantly less than the minimum that can be granted, which is 15. So you're requesting 7, but the most we could even grant is 15. So at this point, I don't see that this particular item, unless somebody disagrees, is not being met based on your appeal request. The other issue I have is we're tasked as a board that to only grant the minimum extent necessary to accomplish the purpose of the appeal. And you have indicated that you can place the shed on your lot without even needing any sort of a setback, 15 feet or you don't even need the 15 feet. You can place the shed on your property without requiring a setback. So I have, concerns about that as well. I'd like to hear what my fellow board members might have for thoughts on that.
Defer to Patricia.
Patricia?
That's a hard line rule, correct?
The 15 feet is definitely a hard line rule. And then as well, we are tasked that says may only be granted the minimum extent necessary to accomplish the purpose of the appeal, which is the placement of a shed.
Okay, so we are interpreting that correct. So 15 is the least.
15 is the least that we can grant, correct?
Okay. Then I have nothing.
Tom?
I guess I'll try to be the voice of reason, maybe, I don't know. If we granted the 15 feet, rather than the 7 that's being requested, would we still allow the side yard reduction? Or is there I forgot what the Shoreland side starts at, is it 20
Side
feet?
would be 20.
20, okay. So we're only really granting, a certain number of feet. And with no objections from abutters, I guess I kind of lean towards letting the storage unit be where it's most favorable to the owner. But that's my opinion, I guess.
So you're saying
15
Allow
from the
for 15.
rear and 20 from the side.
I think there's a couple issues here. One is, are you interested in pursuing a 15-foot setback, and how does that change with, like, when a decision's made, if it's not something, I know that in the past we've talked about, like, it changes in the timeline of appeals and whatnot. So it might be, from my perspective, I don't think we can move forward with a 7 at all. And I think I'd like to hear from the applicant if he's interested in us considering a 15-foot setback, because I don't believe we can move forward on 8 at 7 feet.
if you have something, go ahead and, go ahead and back up there. And
Yeah, definitely not ideal. I requested the 7 because a neighbor on the water had requested a 7-foot setback previously, and it was approved. So 15 is,
Can you clarify what was setback, 7 feet?
I believe it was a shed.
Okay.
In speaking with a neighbor, he said he'd requested a 7-foot setback, so that's why we targeted that. 15 is much better than 30, and I am interested in the 15.
if you want, you can go ahead and.
Okay, thank you. So, kind of just as a follow-up, that David, it sounded like your concern might be that there might be a secondary concern with this in terms of the minimum requirement to accomplish the purpose, or the minimum extent necessary to accomplish the purpose of the appeal.
Yeah.
Is that a secondary issue for you?
It is definitely. I mean, in the appeal itself, it was indicated that the shed could be placed on the property without any requirement for a setback reduction. Therefore, you know, looking at this, may only be granted the minimum extent necessary to accomplish the purpose of the appeal. The minimum extent to me is 0. So.
Yeah. Maybe we need some clarification on this, but I sort of interpret it slightly differently in the sense that, like, it seems to me that the purpose of the appeal is to put the shed in a better location. That I'm not sure if it matters. I mean, as long as he meets the applicant meets the requirements for the reduction. I mean, I know it's of his own kind of action or, you know, own desires, but I'm not sure that I interpret that the same way.
Right.
Is there guidance or precedence here on how that the purpose of the appeal is supposed to be taken into consideration?
Alex?
Not really. I mean, you know, most of the time these are situations where a setback can't be met, so you're reducing the setback in order to be able to build something. You know, it's less common in a situation like this where you could meet the setback. You know, a lot of times you'll find language that says, you know, if the setback can be met, then the variance can't be granted, or the setback reduction can't be granted. I don't think that this ordinance clearly doesn't say that.
Right.
But what they say is, or what we say is worse, and that's what you guys are hung up on, and that's the minimum extent necessary to accomplish the purpose of the appeal. So I think we need to know what the purpose of the appeal is. And I think, like you said, the purpose for him is, well, a couple of different things. So if you guys feel that the purpose of his appeal is, you know, fair, and then I think you can go down to that minimum. It really just comes down to if you guys agree that that purpose is adequate, I guess.
Mm.
So we're reducing it from 30 to 15 for the rear, is that what?
For what reason, I guess, is what you probably would want to clarify.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly understand your point. I think it's just how you interpret,
Yeah.
and whether. I guess that's why you have a board to kind of get together and think through these. And
yeah. That's why you guys get the big bucks.
yeah, you know, I just like with the kind of plurality of abutters, not, you know, not only neutral, but
Yeah.
you know, in favor of, and it's sort of consistent with the fence. And it seems like the purpose of the appeal to me, as I said before, was to just make better use of the land. Yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on that.
I do have two other things, I guess, that I probably would like to at least bring up to you while you're on this one. One of them is the septic system. Septic system does also have setbacks required. It appears as though the field on this lot, the tank and field, are, I guess on the sketch, north of the deck or above the deck, out in that direction of the lot. So it looks like they're okay there, setback wise, from the leach field. And then the other one is, not to bring this one up again, but bringing it up again, do we know for sure that he knows where those lines are? I'm assuming there's a pin in that corner, so it may be easy to kind of measure those setbacks, but you know, this comes off of you know, Jim Netto's mortgage loan inspection. Is it something that if you guys did decide to approve this, you'd want to condition it on Jim Netto setting that closest corner so that we know for sure it's not any closer? Because if you don't, then what do we have to rely on, I guess?
Right.
I guess I'll ask Bruce. Are there iron rods or other pins locating your side and your rear
Yes.
lines?
In the photo.
I know there was photos, so.
Yeah, and those are just strings run from.
Can you go to the podium, please?
The strings were run from the corner pins and photos taken of the strings and tags on the lines.
Yep. So typically for, if I were to issue a building permit for something like this, I'm probably going to require some type of as-built certification from someone with a license confirming that it meets. It's tough when and this subdivision is pretty good. I mean, there's pins in most of the corners, so it does make it pretty easy. It really just depends on, does the pin have a cap, with the surveyor's number on it? Probably not. I mean, just something to think about.
Well, I will come back to the written appeal. It says if we adhere to the setback codes, it will really chop up our side lawn, side yard, and be very close to our existing screen porch. Please don't misinterpret what I'm going through here. I recognize, what you're asking for, and just be aware that if this appeal does not get approved, we're not saying you can't place the shed on your property. You just, you're gonna have to adhere by the existing setbacks. So please know that this is not about whether or not you can or cannot place a shed on your property. This is making sure that we're meeting what the ordinances tell us in terms of what we can allow for setback reductions in terms of placement of that shed. I appreciate the insight, Greg, and I have a hard time. It's been admitted here that it can fit. Property owner is making a choice of the shed size. So for me, I do not believe that number 8 has been met. I'll go ahead and roll call it. Patricia, do you feel number 8 has been met?
I understand the 15 and it not being met. I don't know, I think as far as it being placed somewhere else, it sounds like it'll take the quality away from the lot with the lawn and everything. But you saw the lot, I did not.
I mean, we can share with Patricia what we saw. I mean, yes, given the size of the shed that the applicant is looking for and the placement as it would fit with the setbacks as they stand, yes, that size of a shed would be, relatively close to the house. I mean, it's not going to be up against it. It's all, again, I don't want to feel like I'm in a position of telling a landowner how they can use their land. And so I don't want, again, this to come across for myself that we're saying you can't place a shed on the property. But given that we are tasked to only grant the minimum extent necessary to accomplish the purpose of the appeal, and in my view, the purpose of the appeal is the placement of a shed, the size of which the owner has determined, the minimum extent was 0. At least that's how I'm viewing it. So,
How big is the shed?
12 by 20?
12 by 20.
24.
12 by 24.
The actual,
12 by 24.
that's what the application is. I didn't want to change the application, but we sized it down to 12 by 20.
I'm gonna say that number 8's been met.
I'm a no. Tom?
I'm a yes.
Greg?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with number 8. I think,
Okay. So if you want to go ahead, that will be fine. So by majority of the board, items 1 to 8 have been met. Now we should really fall back to number 4, reasonable conditions. What do we feel are reasonable conditions?
It sounded like I took note of 2 different things. One was no motor vehicle storage in the shed, depending on what term you want to use.
I was going to say, we'll have to define what
Yeah,
motor vehicle is.
Yeah, or as Alex said, licensed to go on the road or whatever. And then Alex had requested that the pins and the property lines be verified to, I guess, after the fact, right? After it's located.
Greg, did you have any more thoughts in terms of conditions?
no, I think there's a handful of things that make sense for the motor vehicle. I think it's going to be, I don't really have a strong preference on how we define it, but I think those are the 2, the motor vehicle, and then make sure we know the boundaries are reasonable conditions.
Okay. Patricia, would you agree that those are reasonable conditions if this appeal is granted?
I agree.
Okay. So I will entertain a motion for granting this appeal with these specified conditions. Anybody?
I'd like to move to approve the appeal with the conditions aforementioned.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I'll second.
Okay, I have to do a roll call vote on this. All those Patricia, in favor?
In favor, yes.
David Murch, not in favor. Greg?
Tom Hennessy in
Tom,
favor.
Greg Dean in favor.
Okay. So, Mr. Hamilton, your appeal has been approved by the Board of Appeals with conditions. So, Sandy will work with us to get the rest of that finalized. Okay. Thanks, sir. So next for tonight's new business, public hearing, applicant Port Harbor Marine, location 1326 Roosevelt Trail, map lot 51-2, zone commercial, description, request for a conditional use outside storage. So, let me see here. I have my stuff, I guess, gotta get more organized here. So there was a site walk of this property that was conducted on Saturday, September 18th, 2021 at 10 a.m. In attendance were David Murch, Tom Hennessy, and Greg Dean. Patricia Beaton was unavailable to attend. Also in attendance was representative for Port Harbor Marine, Rob McSorley from Sebago Technics. Am I saying that correctly? So, what we will do tonight is ask for Port Harbor Marine to present its appeal to the board. Once that is done, we will then open up public comments. We will ask for public comment for those first in favor, then secondarily for those who are not in favor of this appeal, and then finally see if there is public comment for anybody who is neutral to the appeal itself. So, Rob, are you representing Port Harbor Marine for this evening?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I'm sorry, did you have a question?
I just had a general question. I just wanted to inform the board that I was never.
Can you go to the podium if you have a question?
All right.
I just
You want
wanted
to state your
Inform the
name and
board
address, please?
that I was never informed officially of the meeting. You have my address in Florida. It might have got lost in the mail, but I was told I should at least inform you of
Okay,
that.
can you just state your name and address there?
Glenn
we have-
Washburn,
Okay.
17 Tomahawk Trail, Site 49.
Okay. Very good. We'll
No
note it.
biggie, I just wanted to.
Yeah, very good. Appreciate that. I'm sorry, Rob, go ahead and, I just wanted to make sure there wasn't some confusion in what I had presented before you went up there.
Okay, if I remove,
We have no requirements here in this building with regards to mass.
okay. The monitor, are we gonna be able to bring that up?
Yeah, so
That's
Is it turned?
Sean.
Sean, our projection monitor is not working. It's black in here. Are you able to get that turned on?
Here he comes.
Timed out on you. Are you plugged in?
Is that?
Are you plugged in?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. Things love to do this. Here we go. Cool.
At this
Thanks,
point.
Sean.
You're welcome.
Patricia, can you confirm that you can see the projection? There's a map.
Is it supposed to be on my screen? Because I can't see it in the view
Okay.
of the room.
Well, that's
but-
another question we need to get answered then.
Let me see.
So you should have a package that has that same map.
Okay, apparently Sandy provided us documentation, so you should have paper.
This is
This guy.
So we are gonna be looking at, Patricia, the large map that was provided to us. That's what's currently on the projection screen, okay?
Hi.
What camera are we on?
Sorry, Rob, trying to get this all figured out as we go, it seems.
I understand. Technology is a wonderful thing sometimes. Okay, my name is Rob McSorley. I'm Technics. Business address is 75 John Roberts Road in South Portland, Maine. I'm here to represent Port Harbor Marine, who is the owner of this parcel. They own the adjacent marina and have owned that for some time and operate that currently. The parcel in question is address of 1326 Roosevelt Trail. It's shown as Lot 2 on Raymond Tax Map 51. The particular parcel is in two different zones. One is in the commercial zone and one is in the shoreland zone. If you look at the map that's up on the screen or the map that's in front of you, there's a dividing line that goes approximately through the existing residential building on the site, and that denotes the separation from the commercial track which fronts on Roosevelt Trail from the shoreland zone track, which is closer to the ocean side. The total lot of this property is about 5.9 acres. The parcel that we're going to be discussing tonight is that part of the lot that's in the commercial zone, which once again faces Roosevelt Trail. It's about 1.68 acres in area. In the application before you tonight is based upon the fact that it's a commercial parcel, to have any type of outside display or outside storage, there is a conditional use that's required on the property. And that's what's before you tonight is we intend and plan and hope to use that property as part of the outside display area for the project, and have come before you with the conditional use. The conditional use requirements are listed in Article 9, minimum standards. There's 10 of them that we have gone through in our application for this parcel, and went through those and how we met those particular requirements for the conditional use. This is similar to the property that Port Harbor Marine owns on the far side of Roosevelt Trail. It also is in the commercial zone, and because of the desire to have outside storage display areas, we had to come before this board at that time to get approval for that. There's one out. Bear with me for a sec.
I'm just trying to get the projector to work, Patricia.
Okay. And just for your benefit, that is the parcel that fronts the marina on the far side of the street, which we came in for conditional use in, I think it was 2015. This subsequently, after conditional use, because of the change in the topography and changes to the site, we did get a site plan approval for this. Kept and well maintained, as we expect the parcel that we have in question that's before the board tonight.
I'm sorry, can you confirm for me again, is this the view from across the street of the property in question?
Yeah, it's kitty corner from the property in
Okay.
question.
Yep.
It's directly across from Port Harbor Marine's site.
Got it.
And as we did prior, on the prior application, what we did to come to the ZBA was to give a map of the property, and so that you would have some idea of what we're looking at doing. On this map, we have indicated what we plan to do towards a build-out. We have to still go through site plan approval with the planning board. We also have to go through DEP approvals for this parcel, which will include wetlands, and most likely the project will then fall under a Location of Development Act permit, if not the stormwater permit, and we will have to apply for those also for any changes that we make to the site. Once again, we're coming before you because that area that fronts along Roosevelt Trail, we wish to use that for the display and storage of product and facilities out there. On this map, we have indicated that there is a required 15-foot buffer that will abut both Roosevelt Trail and also there's an adjacent commercial parcel. It's part of the adjacent Indian Point property. And once you get down to that zone line between the commercial zone and the shoreline zone, that buffer is required to bump up to 30 feet. And we've shown that. We also have some wetland preservation. Just looking into the future with our client, because of the residential uses down in that lower corner, we'll probably retain more of the wetland and do some additional buffering down in that area. With that, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions relative to the application and the specific items that we've indicated in our application on meeting the conditional use criteria.
I'm gonna have one question first for Alex. This property is zoned both for commercial, and then I don't know if it's LLR1 or LLR2, but shoreland, I should more easily. Is there anything that we as a board need to consider as we look at this for approvals? The fact that this is a property that falls into two zones.
Not really.
Okay.
It's kind of interesting because typically when a lot's in two zones, in most situations you have to apply the more strict zoning requirements to the lot. Kind of an interesting situation here because they're kind of looking to, it's kind of almost the opposite. The commercial zone is very relaxed. Raymond's commercial zone has very few requirements. But in this particular situation, they're looking to do a marina outside of the shoreland zone, essentially. And it's actually not an allowed use outside of the shoreland zone. So it's a weird situation where to continue to, to expand that marina to 302, you're actually doing it as a conditional use under outdoor sales and storage, which is, basically the same thing. They're kind of similar in a lot of ways. But I don't really think there's anything, when you're reviewing this under the conditional use standards, we're really doing this for just the commercial zone portion of the lot. So it's kind of funky, but
Okay.
they always are when they come to you guys. That's why I see it.
Thanks, Alex. I do have one question, Rob, to start with. During the site walk, we had mentioned that the part of the property that's in Shoreland, originally that did not, that was not owned by Port Harbor Marine, that part of property, but it had been leased property. And I'm not sure what went into getting that lease in terms of the town of Raymond, but now that it is Port Harbor Marine property, I just need to know, were there any sort of terms and restrictions put on that lease for perhaps the terms of the lease that may not be applicable now? I don't know if that makes sense, but when you leased that property, were there any sort of terms, restrictions, things like that in place? I don't know if that's making sense, but.
There was a restriction relative to the size of that parcel that we leased when we got approval at the planning board. And that kind of denoted the limits. When you were out there, you saw the fence on the one side.
Yep.
And you saw the limits of how far they went. And it was restricted to that area because it was a square footage thing. If it went beyond there, there would have been additional criteria that would have had to met by during the site planning. We still would not have triggered any DEP concerns at that point, but there was just stuff relative to that. And relative to whether there's something in the lease, I do not believe so.
Yep.
Specific to the lease that restricted something.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that when that was leased, there wasn't something that maybe these property owners said that Port Harbor Marine will never use any of this property other than this portion for the life of the property, things like that. Just
there was nothing of that.
Okay.
They bought the property from.
Right. So, yeah, but just make sure there's nothing that was running with the property as opposed to.
Yeah. No. There.
All right.
Yeah.
Patricia, did you have any questions at this point for Rob or Alex or?
None at this time.
Okay. Tom?
Nope.
Greg?
Yeah, I had a question with the. This is maybe won't matter, but quick clarification on the use as it differentiates between storage and retail use of the land. You had a picture up there. Is that storage? If we could go back to that picture, could you just? I'm just trying to get a kind of conceptualize what storage is, because in several places you mentioned.
There is some, I believe during the winter time, there is some storage on the back side of it. Typically during the season, we have display areas or display boats up along the front. But there is room in the back there to allow for the storage of facilities and whatnot.
Okay, but that picture you have on the monitor is merchandise for sale. That is retail product that is being displayed.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And you can see some trailers on the back side, or back there, where they're storing some trailers on the back.
And the conditional use is for storage. And does that include, Alex? Does that include retail display like we're seeing on the screen, just so I can understand what we're approving, what we're not approving?
Yeah, so the conditional use is actually for, I'm just going to look to see and make sure I word it exactly correct. I believe it's outdoor sales and service.
Okay.
Because, like I said, unique situation, outdoor sales and service is a conditional use allowed in the commercial zone. It's actually not an allowed use in the shoreland zone. Marina is allowed in the shoreland zone, not allowed in the commercial zone. So we're this is like a 3-part process, basically. We've been working with them on this one for a little while. They're going to get the conditional use approval for outdoor sales and service. They're also going to go through site plan, because a marina project can only be approved by the planning board through site plan. So then they're also going to do site plan, which will include basically the entire lot development, because theoretically they would have conditional use approval from you to legalize that use of the commercial zone. So it's kind of it's square peg round hole, and we're looking at amending the ordinance this winter to correct this, because it is a little weird. We have a lot of marina uses that extend into the commercial zone, so we're going to review that with the planning board. But in this particular situation, in order for them to use the entire lot, this is kind of the only path forward. Now, outdoor sales and service is pretty vague in the ordinance, and does that include outdoor boat storage? I don't know. I think that's probably something that maybe you guys can, I guess, work through. I think, outdoor sales, I think can generally include kayaks, canoes, boats, any type of outdoor, sale, basically. And depending on how you interpret that, it could mean literally selling stuff outside, or it could be selling stuff to be used outside. So sales and service, does it include storage? It could include storage of boats that are for sale. I think that's definitely a yes. Does it include storage of boats that are already sold and are marina boats? Maybe not, but I think that's probably something you guys can work through.
Yeah. That's kind of what I'm trying to figure out is what do you intend on storing? Is the use here, the conditional use you're asking for, is to store boats that you're selling, or is the conditional use to store boats and like charge people to store their boats?
It will be both.
And you're asking us to approve the.
And as I said, what we plan to do is, because of exposure, put our sales stuff up along the roadway and whatnot. But there could be off during wintertime storage of boats on part of that 1.6 acres of property that we have there.
So the property that's currently being shown, and Patricia, I don't know if you can see this, but it's a view that's essentially across the street from Port Harbor Marine, which they own that property, and they are placing boats there. Rob, can you just confirm for us how that particular property is being used both during the summer and off months?
It's being used for display of sale product, and during the off season there's additional storage. The boats are winterized, and then there's some boats that are placed on the backside there.
Yep.
And one of the reasons for this is our client currently leases property up in Casco to store boats, and some of that, or that will be transported down to this adjacent parcel. We have like I said, a parcel that's 5.9 acres. We will probably end up using a little over 3 acres of it for the commercial use of the marina. There's certain setbacks, of course, and there'll be some wetlands that are preserved, and we're not going to do any more work within the pipeline easement like the storage area that we have. In fact, we're going to remove some of that as part of what we're going to do for the project.
So to beat a dead horse, basically, what we saw there, and that's okay, you don't have to put it back up, but that's what you are proposing, at least for tonight, as the use for this commercial property that's on, well, the commercial zone of this property, 52.
Yes, to allow, and
51.
it may not be the only thing in the future. We may come in and where the building is now. Let's go back to that. That building may come down in the future and we may have some type of other administrative sales or type of building that's used as part of the business. So right now, we're coming before you because we can't put anything out there.
Right.
And we're coming before you to allow the outside use of that for storage of sales boats and for other boats during the off-season. And when we go through the site planning process, you know, we're going to detail a little bit more, and also in the future, like I said, that building could go and we could put a maintenance, administrative, or some other type of building.
Okay. Gotcha. All right, thank you. We will go ahead then and open up the public comment portion of this hearing. Is there anyone here tonight or remotely that would like to speak in favor of this appeal? Okay, is there anybody here tonight that would like to speak against this appeal? Okay. If you want to go ahead, go up to the podium, sign in.
You guys mind if I go first? No.
Go ahead, yeah, you just go ahead, sign in, state your name and your address, and then your concerns, please.
My name's David Bernard. My address is 71 Indian Point Road. And I have many concerns, but I'll just start with the beginning one here, all right? The photo that was up there the whole time was a photo of across the street, not a photo of the property that we're talking about. The property that we're talking about was purchased in last December by Port Harbor Holdings from Mr. Hartley. They were purchasing a residential home. He stated a few times on 5.9 acres. According to the deed of registry, it's actually 6.75 acres. According to the town's most recent tax bill, that address, 1326, is one parcel. And currently, that parcel at 6.75 acres has a land value of $43,700, and the building on the property is valued at $164,000 for a total value of $207,700. Meaning, currently, for the 6.75 acres on Route 302, they pay $2,928 yearly for taxes. Now, what they purchased was a residential home. If it's being used as a residential home, that seems like a reasonable amount of money. But being used to store boats, sell boats, being the focus point and the jump off point for that entire project that you see there, that encompasses more than 3 acres of the 6.75 acres. I just watched the gentleman give a whole lot of detail about where he's going to place his shed. This is a pretty major change in how that property's been on Route 302 since 1941. Been a residential home the whole time. The difference between the property across the street that he had the photo of, which is 1329 Roosevelt Trail, that is a perfectly flat property that has decent right-hand access onto Route 302 heading north. This property is, the driveway is at a grade coming up to Route 302. Not a very safe situation to make a left-hand turn to get into the marina. Not a very safe situation with the amount of traffic on Route 302 in the summertime to make a right-hand turn out of there with as busy as Mosquitoes and the variety store and all the other surrounding businesses. But again, all those surrounding businesses, they're zoned as commercial. They pay property taxes, as they pay a significant amount of property taxes to the town for what they're using it for. He's talking about storing boats, and you all were, the folks that were on the sidewalk, talking about boat storage. Some of these boats are older boats. Who necessarily knows about how good the gas tanks are? Usually in the wintertime, you fill it right to the top with gasoline. If just on this initial request they're making, say they fill that whole boat, that whole lot full of boats, I don't see in the wintertime there being much in the way of retail boats being placed there. As we all know, it's very difficult to even get a new boat at this point to have delivered there. So I think we can all understand that that is going to be used for boat storage. One environmental issue, and you can see they are abutting shoreland, wetlands that actually lead into the previous Loon Echo Preserve that runs perfectly into Sebago Lake. One environmental issue, whatever the hazardous material might be, it's going to go right down into the wetland in the spring and right into Sebago Lake. And I know this is something the DEP will address. But this process right here is the beginning. They're going to use this to parlay this into the next thing and the next thing. And they've given you a big giant map, fortunately, to tell you exactly what they're planning on doing and just how far back they're planning on bringing down. That is just the first thing. Second thing is, in the notice that was sent to the town on the request, it was stated directly in the first paragraph that Port Harbor Holdings purchased this property from Mr. Hartley, and the purpose is expansion to existing adjacent marina. Initially, they intend to locate some of the inventory of the watercraft for sale to the front portion of the property. That's what it says. Meaning, they purchased that property, shoreland zone, some residential home sitting on a commercial property, just intending that you guys were just going to agree. They're just going to roll right over you. You're going to agree, and then on to the next step, back to the planning board, where the next step comes in, and then to the DEP, but you're the beginning of the process. You can take a stand right now to say, enough of this flim-flam, enough of this, well, it's zoned for this, it's an unusual situation because they use this for this, and they use that for that, and they use this for this. So they're just basically playing all the laws off each other to do exactly what they want for $2,900 in taxes. That's the tax benefit to the town of Raymond. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
You guys have any questions for him? Patricia, do you have any questions for him as part of that? Okay, just making sure. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak in opposition to this? If you can just go up and state your name and address and sign in, please.
Sign in on what?
Just give us your name and I'll
Sorry.
take care of it.
Yes, my name is Mark Jervis, 25 Indian Point Road. A lot of my concerns are the wetlands, which basically the whole area is wetlands. I walked it yesterday and it's so obvious. It comes from 302 and I don't know if they need to go through Maine DOT because of drainage, because there is no drainage there. When they did the road a couple of years ago on 302, resurfaced it, they did put an asphalt curbing in front of the property that they, acquired. So it keeps the water from going down on their property, but it still continues down. And it just, I think with what they're proposing, it's going to saturate what they want to keep as a buffer. It's going to saturate it even more. He says there is a 15-foot setback from 302, but this property goes down on a real steep grade. Are they going to be bringing a lot of gravel in? Are they going to build it up? Is it going to create the water getting shedded into Indian Point? Even more so. It does dry up. I mean, in the springtime, it gets wet. It does dry up halfway through the summer. But I think it's going to be worse as they go through different phases. And you know they're going to build it up. And they want proposed buildings. That's going to be even more water shedded towards the pipeline and definitely into Indian Point. Because we can't build up no more in there. So I am a little concerned to why are they going to the wood line, or are they going to cut the trees down on the front of 302? Do they have permission to do that yet? And if they're going to the wood line, is there any driveways going to come in from 302 eventually, or is it coming from the one driveway they have over there already? Those are my concerns and questions.
Thank you for that. Yeah. We're just, Tom and I were talking about, Rob, did you want to take an opportunity to address any of the things that have been brought up so far? You don't have to, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to speak to their concerns.
Relative to the discrepancy on the acreage of the property, we had the project surveyed, so pretty confident my surveyors probably got it right, but we will double check that. Relative to the tax rate that's currently paid on that, I'm sure that with the change in use, there'll be a change in tax rate. So, but that's not something that you need to be concerned with. The access, the slope, that's something that will be dealt with during site planning. However we change the site in with DEP, we're going to have to address that. We are in the Shoreland zone. We do drain to Sebago Lake. There's additional requirements that we have to meet relative to that. Filling the gas tanks for the winter, typically we don't do that. Typically we empty the gas tanks. Wetlands, environmental issues. We know that we need to deal with DEP relative to wetland and environmental issues. We already had a meeting to date to discuss the proposed plan as laid out. And there will be a pre-application that is required before we do a formal submittal into them. Relative to the wetlands, once again, we acknowledge wetlands. As we said, we're looking only to go to the easement for the pipelines through there, but that's a thing to be dealt with in site plan and whatnot. Once again, we're looking for approval for the use, the conditional use within the commercial zone, which is the entire commercial parcel that we can use once we get site plan approval. Relative to site access, that will be dealt with in the future. There are certain things that we will need to be met relative to clear zone, site distance. We did have to get approval for DOT when we did the other work along Route 302 and also get access or approval from the town. So those will all be addressed during that time.
I think if the appeal were approved, what is the access plan to this part of the property? Should it be used for outdoor sales?
I think we stated in our application right now, we would probably use the driveway for the moving boats here and there. There is I think on the plan, depiction that there will be some type of future access between the parcels that's developed in the future. I would tend to think that the town would not want us to have regular inter-site traffic going out on the road. So that's probably what we're going to be looking at that time.
So it would be through the current driveway structures, or the driveway that's already there?
Correct.
Okay.
You know, and when we go through approval, the town and the DOT, they'll look at the location of the driveway spacing and whatnot. So.
Quick,
Sorry, go
yeah,
ahead.
just another quick additional question. The purchase of the property has been brought up, and I'm curious, was when you purchased this, or when your client purchased this property, was it public? Was it a public competitive process, or did you just purchase it directly from the owner?
I don't know that's required.
You can't answer that, or you don't know the answer?
I don't know, but I don't know
Okay.
if it's required it's a privately owned property that with a private transaction, so.
So it was a private transaction, okay.
Like, you don't need to go out and sell your house and advertise for it.
Oh, I'm not suggesting it's required. I'm asking what happened. That's all.
I think there was an agreement made over time because of the fact there was a relationship between Mr. Hartley and the marina. There was a lease that was occurring, and then I probably got thrown out at some point relative discussion on purchasing the property.
Is there anybody else here tonight that would like to speak in opposition? Yeah. Go up and state your name and address, please.
Hi, Edith Tattalis. I'm 11 Flying Hulls Way, and I'll make it brief. When you get to the point where you are looking over the 9 conditions for conditional use, please look very hard at 2, 3, and 7, because in my opinion, they really, really have not and will not be met, especially when this goes forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello?
Oh,
Hello? Yeah, that's on here.
hello, is this, I see Allison's iPhone, is that correct?
That is.
If you could just state your full name and your address, please, for us.
You bet. My name is Allison Allen. I live at 18 Woodside Drive in Cumberland Center, and also, I guess I don't know what the site number is. It used to be site 34. I'm right directly across from Mr. Washburn, who I believe is there tonight, and the bathhouse. And I've been there for 33 years, and 33 years ago, when it rained or in the spring, there was a little bit of water, enough to get your feet wet. Now, and I'm not exactly sure why, but about a third of my lot is unusable many times during the year. In the spring, it is up to the middle of my calf, and after a rain, about a third of my lot is again above my ankles, and so I'm not exactly sure about where the water comes from and why, but I do know it's increasing, and any increase that could be created by this project will make me a very unhappy camper. And it's like a mosquito breeding pit at my camper, and I'm sure that the code enforcement officer can attest to that. But that's one of my concerns, actually my biggest concern, because it directly affects my property value and my quality of life. I cannot go out and sit outside because it's just mosquitoes, and I'm very conscious about chemicals and stuff and do not put them on my lawn, but I have been very tempted to try to do something to remediate the mosquito breeding pit that I have going on there. My second problem is, or concern is that any increased activity over that is being proposed, I mean, it is a life-threatening proposition trying to get out on Route 302 in the summertime from Indian Point as it is. I mean, you know, and turning in off of 302 into Indian Point, I'm just so afraid I'm going to get rear-ended by traffic that comes, you know, whizzing up there. I put my blinker on, I put my arm out the window and wave it. I'm just, you know, it's already a heavy use area in the summer. You know, and then my other concern is not so much for me, but the properties that are along the loon preserve. I don't know if we're still calling it a loon preserve, but that wetland area for any sort of additional noise, lights, whatever that will disturb what has been a fairly secluded and comfortable area to live in for the last 30 or more years. So that's all. Those are just my concerns. I mean, I have other ones, but I think I've said enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison. Allison, just quickly, just to confirm, you're speaking in opposition to this appeal?
Yes.
Okay, and can you confirm, are you in a butter to this property?
I am not an abutter.
Okay.
I am one site back from being an abutter, but the water definitely is coming from the other side of the road, not from the lake side.
Okay.
And
no, I am not in a butter. I'm at what used to be Site 34, and I'm afraid to try to look on the paperwork that I have that you posted because I'm afraid I'll lose the call if I look up what my site number is.
Okay, no, that's fine. Thank you.
I'm right across from the bathhouse.
And this is a different Allison, but I would just like to clarify that Alan is in a butter, as the common property that the bathhouse falls on is paid for and owned by all residents within Indian Point community.
So that makes me an abutter.
Yes.
So different.
Okay, well, good to know. My husband is deceased, and he used to be the brains of the operation. I apologize.
So different, Allison. Can you just state your full name, please, for us and your address?
Yes, this is the Allison Sarna, 13 Flying Hulls Way. And I did also want to comment on a few things in opposition to this project and also bring up some items that I'm concerned about. It was stated that currently that property space is not allowed to store any boats. However, that has been what has been occurring throughout the summer, which I have several photographs of if we need to verify that anywhere. So if that property is not supposed to be for boat storage, it has been used for that already. Also, I have concerns about who will monitor the criteria and standards around this project. In the last project, there were several criteria and standards that were agreed to by the planning board that did not go through. I have written the board several times asking for that information, and nothing has been sent back. So I have a lot of concerns about follow through, even if there are criteria on them.
I think you cut out on us, Allison.
Am I supposed to, this is the first Allison, Ellen, am I supposed to push done speaking so that she can speak?
I am not sure, but
well, I'm done speaking, so I'm gonna push done speaking.
Okay. So Allison, number 2, are you still with us?
I think, yes, I think my Wi-Fi went down at a point. Sorry.
Okay. Go ahead.
So I don't know at what point I left, but I also had concerns about a portion of the wetlands that's left off of the plan as it's currently drawn. And also in the town requirement, it says any buildings within 100 feet of the property line. And I would also presume that even though some of these buildings are campers and need to be moved, they are considered buildings, and the permanent structure of the bathhouse that is on that common land is not shown in that as well. So it's not giving a clear picture of everything that's in the area.
Okay, thank you. Do you have anyone else who would like to speak in opposition to this?
Yeah, hi, my name is Barry McKay. I live on 29 Indian Point. I am in a butter to this, and I also own 22 Indian Point. But at any rate, I do have a lot of concerns, and everybody's brought them up. I just want to reiterate that, well, this is, in my opinion, not a good idea. I know it's commercially zoned. It's been residential for a long time. There's a lot of wetlands back there that isn't addressed. The plan that I looked at, and I saw it, the same one you were looking at, is rather, I don't know, not misleading, but it's focused exactly on themselves and not what's around them. There is a big overview, and it points to where they are, but that entire parcel of land is in a watershed. If you look on any map of Sebago Lake, you're going to see a watershed. That entire property is in it. Commercially zoning and condoning the use of that land, in my opinion, is not good. I did see they were going to cut down 77 trees. This is all, like I say, there's wetlands in there. It's watershed. Cutting down 77 trees just in phase one is a big deal. I have trouble cutting down one tree without planting another one. I don't know where they're going to plant 77, but I know that's not the concern here. But this is step one, allowing this to go forward. So I want to strengthen what Dave, the first speaker, Dave Bernard, had said, is this is the first step in the process that they'll just, give an inch, this is the inch. Okay. Oh, he mentioned he has a storage in Casco Bay. In my opinion, it should stay there rather than bringing it into the watershed of Sebago Lake. It's just, it doesn't make sense. That's all I had. I just wanted to reiterate what everybody else said, I guess.
Okay, thank you very much. Go ahead, sir.
Name's Glenn Washburn. I'm at 49 Indian Point or 17 Tomahawk Trail. They've changed the names. I am probably one of the longest direct abutters of property there. I have a lot of concerns that people have brought up, so I'm not going to go over all of those. I would make a suggestion to the board, though, that where they've got the boats now stored, they didn't pave it, but they got permission to do that. I read that lease agreement, and you might want to review that. There was a lot of stuff in that at the time. I don't have it with me now, but I did read over it. I think it would be worth the board reviewing that and checking that out. That's one thing that I would suggest. The other thing, who drew this whole thing? I mean, it was somebody that was representing Port Harbor, okay? I don't trust necessarily everything on there. There's a lot of wetlands that have been portrayed on there. Who determined they were wetlands? I don't know. I like the fact that they're portraying some of it as wetlands, and if the DEP would protect it, that would be fine. But I do have a lot of concerns about that. If they go by, they say they're not going to go by that oil pipeline. That is like 50 feet from my property. If they did go by that, that would be a tremendous impact negatively on my property. I'm not saying they will. It's just like, it seems like we got to be very careful about opening up a can of worms. They got stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. I don't know with what we're doing tonight how that leads into the other stages. So I'm going as an opposition, but honestly, don't know quite enough about the whole project at this point to really say. But Again, very concerned about the wetlands, very concerned about them coming past that pipeline, so.
Quick question, what aspects of the lease are concerning to you?
Well, again, I'm saying I don't remember all of them. I was given it because I was a direct abutter, and I do know that with the individual that owned the land before, there were just a lot of things in that. I'm not saying there was anything negative that would impact this, but I think it's worth the board's time to review that. The board had to do something before the town, to approve that, so there ought to be some records of it. And, I don't even know if it would impact the project, but I think it's worth looking at.
Okay, thank you. Rob, I'll speak on your behalf just briefly. Allison number 2 had brought up that boats have been stored on that property that we're talking about tonight. It was brought up during the site walk, and Rob had indicated that that had happened, but it was brought to their attention and the boats removed subsequent to that. So I don't know if you want to add any more to that, Rob, but I do know that you addressed that with us at the site walk. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition to this? Barry? He just
Yes, I'd like to speak. Mr. John Salas.
Can you give us your address as well, please?
13 Flying Hall Way at Indian Point.
Okay, thank you.
13 Flying Hall Way is indicated on the plan directly on the bottom of the plan there. It's the second one in from the right under the Sarna residence for Indian Point. That's where I'm calling in concern with. A lot of the wetland area, as mentioned earlier, is not indicated on that left-hand site for one that should be really addressed highly. If we're talking about a lot of wetlands, they left a lot of wetlands off on this plan. So that was just a point of interest that I saw really quick. And a lot of this site, according to what we're looking at with the gradation, everything's pouring down towards that area, and that is where a lot of it's going to be coming in. One of the points that the engineer had stated that they were going to be able to try to mediate some of the drainage by going across the site and trying to adjust things. Is there any possibility that they're going to be able to do anything along the oil gas line that's going through there, or is that strictly off limits to them and they are not allowed to touch anything on that for grading purposes? And if so, that means everything that they're still going to do is still going to have the same impact in the lower half of this site, which is everything that's going out towards Sebago Lake. It's also
we still have you?
So a couple of the things that I want to also address with their proposal. I have the PDF of their proposal here, and it states 1 through 10 the qualifications to be able to do this. In section 3, they talk about having they're not going to have any noise or vibrations and fumes and odors and that.
We're losing some of your conversation.
Let alone the fact that all the noise and ramifications of having a commercial industry immediately.
Sandy, what was his name?
John.
John, thank you. John, your phone's kind of, I'm assuming it's your phone, perhaps it's through your computer, but you're cutting in and out.
They said that they wouldn't be having anybody on site at the marina. The police were actually called in regards to instances that were happening. We heard, something splash into the pond and over there, and some type of situation. So there are going to be other instances that are now going to be impacting the noise and environment that people at Indian Point are going to have to deal with the now expanding commercial site that used to be a residential site immediately adjacent to Indian Point. Under number 4,
Sorry, was it John?
Yeah.
John, your computer or your phone's cutting in and out.
Maybe he could, if it is his computer, he could call on his phone.
That's true. John, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Well, you're cutting in and out. Are you communicating through your computer or through a phone?
Through a computer, but the Wi-Fi is sketchy.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
It's difficult for us to be able to comprehend everything that you're saying. If perhaps you're able to call in through a phone, then perhaps
I tried on another connection through Zoom, and I was just waiting on the connection to come through. It says waiting on the host to be able to give me a connection. Didn't seem to be accepted
Okay,
yet.
there you are. Before it said there was somebody, but it
Connecting
wouldn't show
now
up.
will work better on this one.
I think you should have through that other connection.
That's John.
John, are you connected with this other means? Or did we lose you? Okay. If John,
It's still showing here.
if John's able to connect, we'll.
Are you there? I'm sorry.
Yeah, there we
Yeah, you seem a lot. It's a lot stronger now.
Thank you very much. Sorry about the confusion there.
So you dropped you're discussing item 4.
Okay.
But we are getting some feedback.
Okay.
You might want to mute
your computer.
computer.
Yeah.
Sorry, this sounds like it's not gonna, the audio is getting a lot of echo, sorry. Sorry, this sounds like it's not gonna, the audio is getting a lot of echo, sorry.
Yeah, we're getting some feedback from you.
Sorry about that. I'll try back in a minute or two and see if I can reconnect with you.
That sounds fine.
Sorry about that. I'll try back in a minute or two and see if I can reconnect. Thank you.
If you'd like to go back up, that would be fine. Sure. You'll just need to. You'll have to repeat your name and address, please.
Glenn Washburn, 49 Indian Point. Something I wanted to mention, just that maybe should be checked into. For the last couple of years, there's been a red pileated-headed woodpecker in that area, and that's an endangered species. And I believe he looks like he might be nesting in that area. That should be checked out. Beautiful big bird. I don't know if you're familiar with it. You only see them once in a while. They're big as a chicken, and they're a woodpecker. But he has been there, and, that should be cleared that somehow maybe somebody determined that he's not nesting there. So.
Just again, you'll need to reiterate your name and address, please.
David Bernard, 71 Indian Point. Okay. The previous gentleman that was just speaking, I know he was in, he was out. What he's talking about is the conditional list that you folks have.
To go through.
And when he was referring to number 3, number 4, when he was talking about number 3, he was referring to, and I apologize, there's so many things that keep getting mixed in here between our previous fight with the planning board and their dock expansion. One of the things that had happened is just like this, there was a promise of no additional noise, no, that was one of the conditions. And that promise was made. And he was just referring to a time the police needed to be called due to unruly folks on the dock. And if we had all night, we could just sit and go through every single one of these things with promises that were made by Port Harbor Holdings in the past to get their dock expansion through that just simply aren't even remotely being followed. And as a community, Allison, who is our HOA president, has attempted over and over and over again to reach out to the planning board to say, all of these things that they promised you to get your approval, they're not happening. So far as the dock expansion happened before they even had a permit for it. It was built before there was a permit. That's just not to get off the subject. And I understand what we're here for. We're here about a little teeny weeny piece adding to their current mixed-use commercial property. It's just, as I stated before, this is the beginning. They get this through, then, here we are talking about this little bit of information, and you're looking at that. Phase 1, phase 2, little notes on the side. Once the DEP approves this will be in phase 2. This is that whole board is full of people from Indian Point. That the purchase was made in December of last year. The application that was put into you was put in on August 20th. Our folks that live in the seasonal community, as most folks know, you leave Sebago Lake around Labor Day. That's why they're all there, not here. And this time, last time with the planning board, we were kind of caught off guard. We didn't know it was coming. Nobody spoke out against it the way that they should have. Tonight, I'm sure there's many more there to speak, and hopefully he can finish because I'm sure he has some very valid points. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition to this? Is there anybody here who would like to speak on this that is neutral? Okay. Do we have John back at all? Sandy, that you can tell?
Allison came back. There's John back. So let them back in.
This is John. Are we back on?
Hello, John. Yep, we've got you.
Sorry about that.
Did you have some remaining points for us?
Yes, a couple things I wanted to touch on really quickly. I'm sorry I dropped out there for a moment. I think the one of the things I was talking about being who is going to be monitoring the progress of this. Is it the town? Are they going to have somebody on site? Is it during the preliminary of it, during the process, and afterwards for the construction? I'm sorry, am I on mute again?
Something happened, yeah.
I'm still here. We are connected?
You're now.
We can hear you.
Okay, that's okay. I'm sorry. The one of the issues that was brought up as well is the depreciation on the property values of the adjacent homes, like Indian Point. Is there a way that there was a determination of what the values are now, and if this is put in, what will be the change in valuation on properties? How is that going to be monitored? It's like number 7, it's like the economic value of this. If the valuation on the properties goes down because of the marina going in and expanding on this, who's going to be paying back the people that have lost the value on this? I mean, they're just saying that it's going to remain the same. There's no way to determine that. One of the other things on the plan itself, I think it was brought up, the houses and everything else that are supposed to be shown within 100 feet of this whole plan. None of that stuff is shown on the drawings itself. So it's really showing a lack of how many people are going to be impacted by what's going on with the expansion of this marina. So those are just a few points I wanted to touch on.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
So I am going to close public comment. I do reserve the right to open it back up again, but for now we're going to close public comment, and the board is going to take some time to review this application. Before we go through any of this, do you guys have anything you want to say? Or?
I have a question maybe for Alex. There seems like some of the abutters are. I tried to keep notes of everybody. It seemed like there's a general theme of violations of use or promises that weren't made. Or can you comment in general or maybe even specifically about some of their concerns or
sure.
Even like the requirements of this showing abutters or not showing abutters. A couple people had mentioned that, so if you could maybe just address some of those concerns.
Sure. As far as the violations go, I was only aware of one violation on this lot. That was the storage of boats. That happened this past spring, late winter. The marina was notified that this lot wasn't approved for boat storage outside of their area that was already part of the leased boat storage area. And they did remove the boats within the time frame that we had agreed upon. So that one, as far as I know, was resolved. We do drive by that area frequently, so it was something that I had been continuing to watch. Obviously, during the summer, that's not going to be an issue. When it will be an issue is this time of year when the boats are coming out of the water. So that's something that we'll continue to watch. And I would encourage anyone that has concerns or maybe they see boat storage beginning to take place on an unimproved lot, go on to the website and schedule a office meeting or phone call and let us know, or they can submit a complaint right through the website as well. The more we know, the more we can do about it. As far as the map not showing abutters, that would be a submission requirement thing. I don't know that is required for a conditional use application. That is a site plan application requirement, typically. So unless there's something in there on conditional use that I'm not aware of, I don't believe that's necessarily a requirement at this stage in the game. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure on that.
Okay. There was one abutter had mentioned an issue with water drainage. Were you involved in that at all, or do you know any more?
It's wet down there. Indian Point is basically, the entire campground is built on a wetland, so it's all pretty wet, as is the land that this house is on. The driest part of the lot, I think, is where the house is, next to 302. So it's definitely something that's going to impact development of this lot. At the site plan stage, that would be something that gets looked at pretty heavily. There's permitting required through DEP to impact wetlands, and then you've got to get into forested wetlands, wetlands of special significance. There's all sorts of different things that come into play there. Would be something that is pretty important though, because if you think about the use of this lot, it's going to be a giant parking lot essentially. Yep. So you've got to review stormwater, how that's going to get treated before it actually runs down into the wetlands. I mean, those things are all site plan criteria items.
Site plan meaning planning board.
Yep.
Correct.
Well, my understanding, the reason why I bring that up is my understanding is one of the conditions that we're supposed to be evaluating is the capacity of the land to hold water, and as part of the conditional use and part of the change of use and how it impacts the ability to hold water. I'm trying to get a general sense of what the land's capability to hold water is now, to set kind of a baseline of how a use change might impact that.
Yeah, I mean, that's, you know, in my opinion, it might not be out of the question to ask for additional information on that, if that's a significant hurdle that you guys are facing, for sure.
Sorry, David, go ahead.
No, there's nothing to be sorry about. Okay, so I do want to say I appreciate everyone's comments tonight. We are bound to our ordinances, and we are bound to looking at this specifically as a change of use for this commercial property strip. So that's how we're going to have to look at this tonight. And that takes us to our land use ordinance. We did get confirmation from our CEO that a conditional use for commercial property is outdoor sales and service. And under Article 9 of our land use ordinance, Section A, conditional uses, the Board of Appeals shall approve, deny, or approve with conditions all applications for a conditional use permit. So we do have authority over this area. The applicant shall have the burden of proving that his or her application is in compliance with the requirements of this ordinance. After the submission of a complete application, the Board of Appeals shall approve an application or approve it with conditions if it makes a positive finding based on the information presented, that the proposed use. And then we have a list of 10 items. I just want to confirm, Sandy, is Patricia still with us? I don't see her on the screen, but I just want to make sure she's...
I am.
Okay, thanks. There you are. See you now.
I'm trying to read the list.
So reading from our list, and we're going to do similar to what we did before. We're going to go through each one of these bullet items, numbered items I should say, discuss, and then do a roll call, sort of mini vote to see how we all feel individually with regards to an item. And with these, I'll go ahead and read the first one. After I read it, I am going to include the response from the applicant, so that we can have that for discussion purposes. Item number 1 is will not depart from the general purpose and intent of the ordinance, nor from the town's comprehensive plan. Response from the applicant to this was the proposed use will provide commercial redevelopment in the appropriate zoning district and keep growth in an intended growth area as stated in the comprehensive plan. And open that up to discussion by board members. I think
What is meant by growth?
What's that? I'm sorry?
Can you repeat that as far as it affecting growth?
Sure, of course. The applicant's response was the proposed use will provide commercial redevelopment in the appropriate zoning district and keep growth in an intended growth area as stated in the comprehensive plan. I have a little bit of a, I want to say an issue, but I'm not 100% sure what's in the town's comprehensive plan to be able to say whether or not this fits in it.
Refer to Alex.
And I will refer to Alex. Can you speak to that, Alex?
There would probably be some additional research time that'd have to go into that, because the comprehensive plan is, you know, it likely will not be an issue, is my guess, because this portion of the lot was zoned commercial. So like the ordinance, the comprehensive plan, when it comes to the commercial zone, is pretty much all about development. So I would be surprised if we could find a way to say that the comprehensive plan wouldn't allow that in commercial, but it's a big document and there's a lot in there. So it's really up to you guys. If it's something you're planning on making a decision tonight, I can pull up the comp plan and start looking through it right now while you're going on to the next one if you want.
How do my fellow board members feel about this?
I would be surprised if a rushed review of the comprehensive plan made me much more confident than you just saying that you would be surprised if it didn't qualify because it's commercial. But that's kind of my, if we wanted to do a more comprehensive review of the comprehensive plan, that might be valuable. But if the question is, should you rush through it now to try to provide a better answer, I don't think that's super helpful personally, but I'd like to hear everybody's opinion for sure.
Patricia, what's your experience with this?
I'm just wondering, are we sure that we should be the ones making a decision at this point and not kicking this to the planning board first and us getting it after them?
It's my understanding that we're working with a commercial zone and we have the authority to grant this conditional use within that commercial zone. A lot of what was discussed tonight, and there are a lot of concerns with the overall proposed development of the property in general. And I think that does have to go before the planning board. Alex can correct me if I'm wrong with that, but I don't believe there's a need for us to kick this anywhere but to ourselves, unless I'm missing something here, Alex.
No, you're correct, because the planning board couldn't approve it, essentially, since it would require conditional use approval.
Yep.
And then you're making the applicant spend a significant amount of money to go through the process for engineering your stormwater and everything. So you could, but it would probably be something they aren't interested in doing.
Yep.
Okay. It just seems like there's a lot of concerns with the entire project, and we're just trying to look at one small portion of it.
Yeah, and I would agree. I think that's part of the overall map that we have in front of us lays out a big plan. But for us tonight, we just, our focus is only on that commercial zone, that strip of the parcel that's within the commercial zone, and whether or not we can grant a conditional use of that outdoor sales and service. So I agree, there's a lot more here, but I don't think it's all for us. I think we just got a small piece to it.
Okay, then I guess going point by point, and if we have more information that we need, we can revisit this?
I wouldn't disagree. I think if we come out of, as we go through these points, if none of us, or one of us doesn't feel comfortable with making a decision tonight, then yeah, I think we need to table it and come back to it at a next meeting. But
okay.
But your experience, have you had experiences with the comprehensive plan that would make you hesitant on point number one?
I think we should look at it. I think we should at least look at it.
Yeah, I would be in agreement with Patricia. So, and I think by look at it, meaning we don't want to look at it from Alex reviewing it over the course of the next 15 minutes, but actually investing some time into this.
Yeah.
Given the amount of public comment tonight, I think it would be wise to invest that time. And with that said, I don't know if we need to table now, or if we should continue through the rest of our bullet points and see what else might come out of this for additional, if needed, work.
My suggestion is go through them so we get a list of action items.
Yeah.
Rather than keep tabling it and
I would agree.
Yep.
Just given the time of the evening, I just wanted to make sure we're all in agreement.
Is that part of the agenda?
Yeah, where's the break in the agenda?
I'm sorry. I think there's actually, one of the boards has a, we're gonna stop by 10 o'clock.
Do they?
time.
Gotcha.
Yep.
I think it'd be good to get, if there are other things that need to be done.
Yep, I agree. I just wanted to make sure we were
Yep,
all,
I'm with you.
I don't wanna.
Patricia,
Agree.
oops, sorry. Go
Okay,
ahead.
no, okay. You got that vice chair.
That's right, yeah, okay.
March on.
Okay, so number 1, open issue at the moment. Number 2, will be compatible with permitted uses within the zone as determined by the population, density, design, scale, and bulk of any proposed new structures and intensity of use. Our applicant has responded to this stating the use is compatible with retail uses of the business of the adjacent Port Harbor Marine. The low intensity of the use will be in harmony with other adjacent commercial uses in the district. I mean, we have example of a commercial property across the street
Yeah.
being used for this purpose.
And others down the street too.
And others down the street, yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think there's a substantial amount of consistency, at least with the use.
Yep. I would agree. So, Patricia, would you agree that, unless you have some additional questions or comments, would you agree that item number 2 would be met by the applicant?
Yes.
I would agree.
I agree.
Greg?
Agreed.
Okay. Number 2, yes. Will not, number 3, will not generate noise, vibration, fumes, odors, dust, or glare which are detectable at the lot boundaries, and all aspects of the conditional use will be carried on within the structure. Number 3, applicant has indicated per the nature of the conditional use, its activities will be outside within the property. The low intensity and proposed nature of use will eliminate, reduce, or not generate outside of property boundaries. Things that won't be generated are noise, vibrations, fumes, odors, dust, and glare from the property. Now, clearly there's no structure. So, Alex, can you give us a little bit of insight here? I mean, number 3 seems like there's a requirement towards a structure here.
Well, this is kind of one of the standard, this is kind of a standard condition on most things, pretty much everything in the ordinance. You know, it doesn't really make much sense because the actual conditional use is outdoor sales and service. So all aspects of the conditional use will not be carried on, you know, within the structure. So it really depends, I guess, how black and white you guys are going to look at this one, because I don't think that the intent of the ordinance is to, you know, keep that use within a structure. But how do we really make a finding on that, I guess, you know? I mean, that can be one we can, you know, pawn off on legal, I guess. If you want to get a legal analysis on that, I think it's worth it.
That would be my preference.
I'm extremely black and white, so
I know,
I would prefer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't see a way around that one.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to be able to argue one way or another.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, yeah.
Okay.
So Patricia, I don't know if you got that, but we're gonna
Yeah.
request follow-up. Are you good with that?
Yes.
Okay. Good with that, Tom?
Yep, I agree. Yep.
Okay, so number 4 is an open issue as well. Number 1.
That was 3.
Oh,
That was
number
3.
3.
Yeah.
Thank you for keeping that.
Where have you made the note?
Thank you.
Okay, number 4, will not cause water pollution, sedimentation, erosion, contaminate any water supply, nor reduce the capacity of the land to hold water, so that a dangerous or unhealthy condition may result. Applicant's response, the project will be designed so that the site does not cause water pollution, sedimentation, erosion, contaminate any water supply, nor reduce the capacity of the land to hold water. More specifically, as the site is developed, it will be designed to treat any runoff from additional impervious and developed areas. Well, I fall back to the initial paragraph where it says the Board of Appeals shall approve, deny, or approve with conditions all applications for a conditional use permit. With that, it says the applicant shall have the burden of proving that his or her application is in compliance with the requirements of this ordinance. In the bullet item, or I keep saying bullet item, the numbered item says will not cause water pollution, sedimentation, erosion, or contaminate any water supply, nor reduce the capacity of the land to hold water, so that a dangerous or unhealthy condition may result. The response is the project will be designed so, but we don't have any evidence tonight that it has been designed so. Patricia, how are you looking at this? My concern is we don't have evidence of this from the applicant.
That's what I see that, but there's nothing showing us that any of that won't happen.
Right.
Yeah. So, I think specifically also because people have already raised the concern of water being an issue, and the burden of proof on the applicant. It's hard to not want more information on this.
Rob, I'll go ahead, and if you want to speak to this, certainly.
Yeah. Once again, we're asking for a conditional use to allow a certain use on the property. We're not asking for development of the property at this time. We have to go through site plan approval. We have to go through DEP permits. We'll have to go through DOT permits that will address all this. And we will need to meet the requirements that are in the same language in the site plan ordinance. I'm not sure how we can demonstrate right now some of these things for you until we get into design of the project. Once again, we're asking for allowed use to be occurred on this property. If we get to a point where we can't meet these criteria, then that particular use would not be available to us. We can't go to the planning board first. The planning board will send us back here and say, you don't have the right to do this yet. So, relative to your comprehensive plan, the comprehensive plan does not have any specific language relative to you shall only develop in these areas. The trend is not to be in the rural area. That's the major part of a comp plan. This is a commercial parcel. Mm-hmm. This is where development should occur. It's not going to change. Relative to the environmental concerns, relative to stormwater, wetlands, and all that, we have to address that as part of the property. And I see us going through these things, and I'm not quite sure what you're going to be looking for relative to satisfying the condition.
Okay, I appreciate the comments. I mean, you'll have to understand that our role as the zoning board is to abide by what's in these ordinances, and it's our role to interpret these ordinances, discuss them as a board, and make what we feel is the correct interpretation as to how to move forward. Mm-hmm. So, I appreciate your assessment of the comprehensive plan, but we haven't been able to make our own assessment of that. You know, and we believe that, given the general comments tonight, or at least myself, and I don't know as I'm speaking for everyone, but you know, I believe it's valid to meet those concerns and make sure the comprehensive plan is in alignment with what's being proposed here. In terms of this particular item, you know, will not generate noise, vibrations, and so on and so forth. You know, we need
We're on 4.
In the ordinance.
I'm sorry, number 4.
There's a certain amount of noise that can occur. There's certain levels that you can't exceed.
Yeah, I apologize. It was number 4. Will not cause water pollution, sedimentation, erosion, contamination.
And that will need to be addressed as part of the property.
I guess point of clarification for Alex or whoever. So if we granted boat storage, right? The use for boat storage and outdoor purposes, the planning board still has to approve a certain amount of whatever before the first boat can actually get stored there. Is that correct or not?
The use, the conditional use would be outdoor sales and service. And yes, if you guys approved the conditional use, you're not really approving any activity to take place. There's multiple gates they'd have to go through in order to actually be permitted to do anything.
Okay, so I guess my point is, that by us blessing this at some point, they can't start next week and put boats on the
Correct.
property, and the planning board still has to review the water and the
Correct.
whatever.
Yep.
And before they fill the thing up with boats and change the impervious zone, surface area or
Yep,
something.
absolutely.
Okay.
I have so what you're saying is we could just take number 4 put conditions that everything that is adhered to by whatever the planning board and DEP puts out, and that's the condition?
I think she's looking at you.
Is that a question
I
for me?
think that was for you.
Okay. I think Patricia and David were the only two. I think, Tom, you may have actually watched the meeting. I can't remember. The Starrett conditional use. I know, David, you were a part of it at least.
Yeah.
That was a big part of that one. This same exact conversation was had for that one. And the end result was the board felt comfortable in approving because they knew that if any of those things couldn't be met, the planning board wouldn't approve it or can't approve it because they have to meet all of those same exact things. So I believe the finding stated that, you guys were approving it based on the understanding that the application for site plan, if approved, would meet all of those requirements. And that's the only way that they could actually have the conditional use. So it's kind of a full circle, I guess.
Yeah, I just sort of feel we're kind of punting on the question here. Is if you can prove it to the planning board, you should be able to prove it to us, I feel like. And I'm not sure that the burden of proof, given the kind of, at least at this point, is adequate in my mind. Just saying it won't do it. I mean, the use will change something. I haven't seen anything that indicates how much the change would be for, is it better, is it worse? I just, we weren't supposed to make a decision on it and it was a planning board issue, I feel like we should have it removed from the criteria. That's sort of where I'm at, but. I understand the circle though. I mean, it's an attractive solution to just say
Yeah. I mean, that's the issue, right? I mean, that's the problem, right? Is sometimes the ordinances aren't written in a way that facilitates moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's not out of the question though for you guys to ask them to provide you with, a basic stormwater plan, what that might look like, how they may approach treating based on the, grade that they have. I mean, there's probably a contour plan already in place. Don't know if there's contours on that one, but it wouldn't take them terribly long to give you, a basic idea of where the sheet flow, where that water's going, how they feel it could be treated based on those wetlands. And that might be enough information for you guys to at least make a finding there.
Do you feel comfortable with that, Greg?
Yeah, I think that's directionally the right thing. I mean, I'm just not qualified. I know, Mr. McSorley, you're a PE, and this probably seems obvious to you, and just respectfully, I'm not qualified to look at, I can't read this and say yet whether or not it's been impacted by boats being stored there.
For the benefit of the board, we produced that plan to give you some information relative to that regard. You'll see on that plan there is one area that states on there potential use for water quality treatment. It's in the lower left-hand corner. That would be some type of filter system or something of that nature. The other part of the site, it would really depend on how it's developed, and there could be subsurface stuff, rather in lieu of a surface type system that we proposed in that corner. So we did provide some thought about that we know that we're in the Sebago Lake watershed, very important. There's phosphorus control that we got to consider as part of that, and it will be addressed as part of the project. In the end, it's really going to depend, where things get put and placed and all that. But we really haven't done that amount of detail because, once again, we're looking for a conditional use that allows us to move forward the project. But we have thought about that.
Yeah, I see. Yeah.
Just to indicate on the plan.
That's helpful context. Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 4, how do we want to move forward?
A little bit of a disadvantage because I'm not familiar with the exact precedents you mentioned, Alex, but so I'd have to kind of defer to perhaps those with more experience on how that applies to this scenario.
For me, given the fact that we do have, the applicant shall have the burden of proving, and we as a board have a responsibility to address item number 4 as it's listed here to us. We really, we have a little bit, but for myself, I don't know if I feel comfortable enough. I would prefer to have, as Alex suggested, a little bit more detail in terms of how this would be addressed. I would myself feel better about, especially given the comments that we've heard tonight with regards to runoff and then the wetlands and such. But that's just me. So, Patricia, would you want more detail or no?
Yes.
Yep, I would like more detail.
Sure.
Okay, Greg. Okay, so number 4, open issue. Number 5, will not adversely impact any deer wintering area or other important plant or wildlife habitat or scenic area such as views of Sebago Lake or mountains from public places. Response from the applicant: recent applications for the marina have not indicated any deer wintering or other important habitat within the vicinity of the property. There are no public places adjacent to the property other than Roosevelt Trail. Only a partial view of the lake is seen through the adjacent marina site. Thoughts?
I can chime in if.
Yeah, please.
It doesn't seem like the views are impacted from from this, and given the current use, and the change of use doesn't seem like it would change it, having gone through looked at the site. I also don't believe that, I'm not an expert in deer wintering, but that also doesn't seem to be applicable to the required change of use, or the requested change of use. So I'm comfortable on 5.
Yeah, I feel comfortable with 5 as well. Tom?
I'm good.
Patricia?
Agreed.
Okay, so good with 5. Number 6, will not deny light and air to surrounding properties. I mean, based on proposed use, the site walk, I don't see an issue here.
I would agree.
Greg?
Agreed.
Patricia?
I'm okay.
Okay. Number 7, will not depreciate the economic value of surrounding properties. Applicant response, the property will be maintained by a well-established business of the community and will not depreciate the economic value of surrounding properties. Well, the issue is for me, it's a commercial property, and has to have a conditional use of, or that can be applied, of outdoor sales and service. Given that.
I find it hard to, how do you say no to use of a commercial property? And it's right on 302.
Yep. I think number 7 is satisfied, given that we are focused on this commercial zoning spot. Patricia, thoughts? You're good? Do you believe this has been satisfied, number 7?
It is a commercial spot, so I agreed.
Okay.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine any commercial use that wouldn't have similar.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure.
Number 8, will have sufficient potable water available for its needs. Applicant response to the proposed use will require minimum potable water.
I don't even know, is that area public water or anything, or is it all wells?
I don't think it goes by right there. I don't know. It's a good question.
Okay.
Do you know, is there a well on site?
I think it's water.
Yeah.
There's a fire hydrant across the street.
Ah, that would be an indicator.
Yeah, because
is there public water in Indian Point? Yes. There is. Oh, okay, there must be.
Yeah.
And we get a bill from Portland Water District.
It must be. Pretty detailed.
All right, so I would say that number 8 is satisfied. Patricia?
Agreed.
Tom?
Agree.
Greg?
Yeah, I agree.
Number 9, will not create a hazard to either pedestrian or vehicular traffic on the roads and sidewalks serving the proposed use as determined by the size and condition of such roads and sidewalks, lighting, drainage, intensity of use by both pedestrians and vehicles, and the visibility afforded to pedestrians and the operators of motor vehicles. So I mean, certainly getting vehicles onto and off of the property, but that's a sporadic thing. It's my understanding from our site walk that access to the boats would be from the side property. I'm open to discussion on this one, so.
Alex, is it usually DOT that concerns are what's, okay.
Yeah, I think it's, seems like it's commercial property on 302. It's, the change of use is not really material into its, like I can envision a substantially more hazardous commercial use for that area, like, you know, something with high traffic or something like that. I'm not getting the sense that that's what this use is going to create, if I understand what 9 is about.
Yeah, we're not,
I mean, to confirm, 302 is high traffic, but
No, I mean
access to
in and out
yeah,
of,
we're not,
you know, like a,
we're not opening a McDonald's.
yeah,
Exactly.
Or
yeah,
something.
yeah.
That was my understanding as well. I'm going to say that number 9 is satisfied. Patricia, your thoughts on that?
No, I agree with that.
Okay. Tom?
Agree.
Greg?
Agreed.
Number 10, will not overburden police, fire, and rescue services as determined by response time, accessibility to the site of the proposed use, and numbers and types of emergency personnel and equipment presently serving the community. Response by the applicant, the proposed use will not provide burden to police, fire, and rescue services. Response time will be the same for the existing use. Accessibility of the site will be provided in the site design, and no additional equipment will be necessary based upon the proposed use. I believe number 10 is satisfied. Patricia, how are your thoughts?
Agreed, because it'll be taken care of with the plan.
Yep, agreed.
Agree.
Greg?
Agreed.
Okay, so as I go back through my notes, show number 1 as an open item will not depart from the general purpose and intent of the ordinance nor for the town's comprehensive plan. I believe the follow-up to that would be for some research by the CEO or his office into the comprehensive plan looking towards that. Second open item would be number 3. Confirmations. All right.
Yep.
Will not generate noise, fumes, will not generate noise, vibrations, fumes, odors, dust, or glare that are detectable at the lot boundaries, and all aspects of the conditional use will be carried on within the structure. The main point here being the structure. So the follow-up item on that would be for our code enforcement officer to get in touch with the town's attorney. I do think depending on that response, we will have to review this further. If outside use is good, we're going to have to look with these other items. But for now, focus will be on the structure. And then the final open item, number 4, will not cause water pollution, sedimentation, erosion, contaminate any water supply, nor reduce the capacity of the land to hold water so that a dangerous or unhealthy condition may apply. Our open item on that is that we would like the applicant to provide a more formal outline of what the plan is for that piece of property that would address these particular conditions. I think that's fair to the people that have voiced their concerns tonight.
Yeah.
Okay. So, with all that being said, I will entertain a motion to table this in favor of getting these 3 items addressed for the next meeting. Anyone?
Go ahead.
No.
I make a motion that we table this till the next meeting. And my follow-up question is for Rob. Can you have details to support the next meeting?
Months from now, right?
It's October 26th.
October 26th, we can meet that easily. Yep.
Okay.
Of course,
Do we already have something
We
on the
need a
agenda?
week or so before that.
So-
Not necessarily,
so
but
3
it
weeks.
was, it's our next open meeting.
Okay. I just,
I would second that.
Put a reminder.
I will
We'll
second that.
start working on it tomorrow.
All in favor? Patricia?
I'm in favor.
David's in favor.
Favor.
Great, okay.
I'm in favor too.
Our public comments closed right now, so
Are we going to have a chance to comment later?
not this evening, no. Technically, public comment is closed for this, but I do reserve the right to open it back up again at the next meeting. I think it's
important piece of information. Hey, Dave,
No, I can't listen, I can't listen to it tonight.
Can I,
I'm sorry, it's just kind of the rules of procedure, so.
Are we allowed to speak in any way, shape, or form?
No, I mean, we've closed out the public comment for tonight.
Not even a comment, just a request of the zoning board.
I will entertain a request.
Okay. The request is simple.
Could you go to the podium if you're gonna do that?
That you allow schedule.
You're gonna have to go up there, state your name.
And who you are.
David Bernard, 71 Indian Point Road. My request for the board is that you allow public comment prior to voting at the next meeting, so that we have an opportunity to have more folks speak that didn't have a chance to speak tonight, and have possible other folks come as well.
Well, I appreciate the comment. I will state that, tonight's hearing has been posted. In fairness to the applicant, everybody should have been here tonight to speak to that, but again, I reserve the right to open that back up for the next meeting, so I'll leave it at that. Okay.
I have a quick request that'll help you guys. It isn't about Crow, it's about number 4 to assist you.
I gotta, no, if you want to, I know, and I probably shouldn't have done that. If you would like to submit anything to Sandy through our code enforcement office, she can forward any stuff to us
You can send an email to us.
for review. But in fairness to the applicant tonight, we did close out public comment. I probably shouldn't have opened it up, but I did want to take one last, so.
I shouldn't open it up for one and not open it up for another. That's called discrimination, you know?
I agree, and shame on me.
Shame on you.
Okay. So, we didn't even, did we vote on that? No.
Voted table, yeah.
We did vote to table,
yeah.
we're good with that, all right. So, next on the agenda, code enforcement officer communications.
Yeah, I'll keep it short and sweet. I don't really have much to update you on this time from, not much has changed from the last meeting. And it's past 9:30, so I'm not gonna keep you guys with nothing. We're rocking and rolling now.
Is there anything outside of this table application for the next meeting?
I don't,
Yes.
you have
Yes,
something?
I told you that.
Which one?
Holland.
Oh, yep.
Okay. Fair enough. Okay. I'll take a motion for adjournments.
I'll definitely in favor of that, but I'll motion for that too. So.
Seconded.
All in favor? Patricia? David says yes.
Greg says yes.
We're done. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir.